a lot of people aren't moving up in a down market. You know, if I have my, 3-bedroom house, am I going to go to the 4-bedroom house? You know, they're thinking I might not want to do that. But when you think of it logically, is that moving up in a down market is the best thing to do. Because if prices drop, let's say 10%, and I'm looking at moving to $1 million house and it's dropped 10%, you know, it's gone down $100,000. And if my house is, $600,000, it's only gone down 60. So that spread is the closest it's ever going to be. So yeah, if I was a young realtor, let's say I have a client list of 25 people, or I'm on a big team and I have a client list of 100 people, what are the opportunities with those 100 people? And again, looking at what I specialize in, people getting older. So if I have a client list and they're from 25 to 50 and they've all moved in the last 5 years, a lot of them aren't going to be thinking of moving, but what do they all have in common? Is they all have moms and dads, grandpas.
Right.
So how can I maximize that client list is maybe they're not thinking of moving, but how can I ingrain myself into the family? And I was worried about the market because the market had shifted. It was, when I first started, it got, the interest rates had jumped up. And a gentleman, a very thick Portuguese accent, he says, Mike, don't worry about the market. He says, there's always people getting married. There's always people getting divorced. There's always people making more money. There's always people losing money. And unfortunately, there's people sick and passing away. So the market is always good. It's just the way you look at it.
Well, yeah, Michael, thank you for joining us. We're recording.
Oh no, the pressure's on. Where's the makeup lady? Yes, well, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Please introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me, about your experience in real estate. Lay the map out for us.
Okay, then, well, let's see. That's a long history. It could take a while. Anyways, I guess I got out of university when I was 21. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I saw an ad in the newspaper. It says, you too could be a realtor. I really didn't even know what a realtor was, but it was better than, I was working construction at the time. So I signed up and took the courses. Back then it was 3 weeks of courses, and got my real estate license. And I wound up in a Montreal trust office and started selling real estate. It wasn't, I was far from a hit, it took a long time to get adapted, but one common theme throughout my career is I've always had an interest in the shelter needs as people get older. At the same time I was getting into real estate, my dad was approaching retirement, and his peer group were approaching retirement, so the question always was, where do we go from here? And to my idea when I was younger, well, you get married, you buy a house, you have kids, you just move into a smaller house, and then you move to a condo, and then you die, and that was the
hopefully not in the condo.
Not in the condo, and that's what I thought it was. Is that, and then as I started researching it and learning more about it, there was a multitude of options out there. So I focused on that in my real estate career when I first started out. Then I got excited. I was younger and I got into building and development. We were doing gas stations, convenience stores, building them and leasing them out, which was exciting. And then the market corrected itself in '89, and I suddenly found myself going, what do I do now? It was really slow, and so I actually got into the financial services business for a few years. And the funny thing about that is when people realized I knew a lot about real estate, and a lot of my clients were older, they kept on asking me about their house and not about their financing. So one day I was kind of frustrated with that, and I wound up cold calling the president of Royal LePage Real Estate, and I guess this was around 1999. And I asked him, what are you guys doing to adapt your agents to the changing demographics, the older marketplace? And first Simon Dean said, he was the president, he goes, who is this calling? And it's and he goes, that's a good question. And he says, I'll get back to you. And I didn't think he'd get back to me, but he got back to me, and we wound up meeting and talking about it. And then they hired me as a consultant to develop a training program on how to more effectively deal with older clients. At that time, they had 9,000 agents. So I rolled out a program called Real Estate Planning, which was how the agent could help their older consumers. I did that for 3 or 4 years, and then the internet was really taking off there, and everyone said, well, there's not going to be any more salespeople, because the internet's going to do everything. Of course, we all know that didn't quite come that way. They keep saying that, but we're still here. And then I just got into consulting. I worked with a lot of retirement residences and helping their sales staff deal more effectively with clients. And then actually that rolled into, over the last 10 years, I've been working a lot with faith groups. because a lot of churches, their congregation members are getting older, and what happens is they don't need the big property, they don't need the big sanctuaries anymore. So I was helping them repurpose their properties, which was really exciting work. Is that we had a property in Aurora that we helped them move their church to the front of the property, and they're building a retirement home at the back. We consolidated a few churches. We actually sold a church in Burlington to the hospice, the Carpenter Hospice, so they had more space. So really neat things, but my real love was at dealing with people. So I was, over the last little while, I've got back into dealing directly with older consumers. I'm with Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, and I run a program called Housing TLC, which is Housing Transitions and Lifestyle Consulting, where I actually help clients make a plan to move forward when they retire. And so that's really my focus of my business right now. And if you want me to go into more about Housing TLC, I can give you some background on that.
What's the biggest difference that you see, like, from when you started, and maybe you said you started 1890.
I'm really old, okay.
1980.
1980, what was it? 81.
81?
I started. I got my license in 81, so it started 82. But
okay.
What difference?
Like before COVID and then after COVID?
Well, actually, you look at that whole time frame is, the technology has always been changing. So that's probably the biggest factor is, I joke with the young people in my office is that, everyone's on the computer looking for properties. We had paper and books, and we had to look for properties and like that. But, from the consumer side of it is that, people still need guidance. People say, oh, well, I can find anything online. What do I need a realtor? But people need to be guided through a process. It's the biggest investment of their lifetime, and no one wants to make a mistake. So they're looking for professional guidance. So while technology changes, things get faster, more efficient, is that people need professional advice. And that's the biggest difference. But when I first started, I sat beside a gentleman in a very thick Portuguese accent, and I was worried about the market because the market had shifted. It was, when I first started, the interest rates had jumped up, and he says, Mike, don't worry about the market. He says, there's always people getting married, there's always people getting divorced, there's always people making more money, there's always people losing money, and unfortunately, there's people sick and passing away. So the market is always good. It's just the way you look at it. So
yeah, that's something that you have that maybe a lot of realtors, even with, how long has the market been, you'd say, on a high, if you can?
2010?
So yeah, so people have been, even in the market for 10 years, they haven't seen a big down.
Yeah, well, we were joking, is that, many young realtors, for them it was, put the sign in the ground, collect a check, put the sign in the ground, collect a check, because you literally put the sign in the ground, there was 15 buyers to buy it, they would buy it, and then you would move on. So again, now we're gonna have to change our focus. Business planning is gonna be so important. What is your target market? Who are you going after? How are you gonna do that? How are you gonna use technology like yours? You offer a service to help realtors on the technology side and the marketing side, and that's gonna be a key component to move forward.
I'd like to go into that. You're saying some sort of business planning, business marketing, and plan. How does that look like in a big downturn? Like, are you investing less, investing more in certain areas? Are you taking time to, ride out the downturn? Like, what's the strategy in a
The strategy is, okay, so is looking at the big picture, first of all. Let's look at the marketplace. In a downturn market, what are the opportunities and what are the drawbacks? A lot of people aren't moving up in a down market. If I have my 3-bedroom house, am I going to go to the 4-bedroom house? They're thinking I might not want to do that. But when you think of it logically, is that moving up in a down market is the best thing to do. Because if prices drop, let's say 10%, and I'm looking at moving to $1 million house and it's dropped 10%, it's gone down $100,000. And if my house is $600,000, it's only gone down 60. So that spread is the closest it's ever going to be. So an adage I learned a long time ago is move up in a down market. First-time buyers are always going to enter a marketplace because at that point in time, that's all they know. Right. If interest rates are 6%, the first-time buyer coming in, That's all they know is 6%. What can I afford? And they purchase that. People cashing out of a marketplace, it's probably not what they're going to do in a down market. But again, I focus on older consumers, and a lot of times they have to make a decision due to changing life, things happening in their life, mostly health concerns or, children, and grandchildren moving away. They want to be closer. There's going to be a reason for them to move. The biggest thing is you have to have clients that are motivated to move. If they don't have a motivation, because if I list your house and I list it at $1.5 million because that's where the market's at, and it drops a little bit, and I have to sit down and say, look, at the market's now 1.4 for your house. Unless you're motivated to move, you're going to look at me and go, I'm not dropping $100,000, But if I have that goal in mind, is that I'm moving, I have the house I'm going to move into, they're going to move forward. But again, so having clients that are motivated and know why they're moving is the most important thing that you could look for.
How can you find those clients that are motivated? Or is it just sitting down with them in your interview first and kind of assessing that out?
It is, changing the conversation is important.
Okay.
That little adage I just gave you is move up in a down market. Most people are going to be talking about, oh, the market's terrible. Oh my God, let's run away from it. But is there pros and opportunities? And people think about it. Yeah, that makes sense to do that, Or it's, why am I, a first-time buyer, all they hear is bad market. Well, tremendous opportunities, because what's bad for someone is good for another person. So, we're going to unfortunately see a lot of people that can't afford their house because of changing interest rates. Well, if I'm a first-time buyer, I could take advantage of that opportunity where they have to sell, or they're really motivated to sell. And you're going to see in the marketplace a lot of bank repossessions, power sales coming up there. So there's opportunities there. So changing the narrative is probably the most important thing you can do. Is, it's not bad. It's just different opportunities.
Right. So taking that time to reassess and kind of shift your mindset and see it in a different way. And I would think that helps you create different strategies that you had in the up.
Right. So it's being, if I was a young realtor, let's say I have a client list of 25 people, or I'm on a big team and I have a client list of 100 people, what are the opportunities with those 100 people? And again, looking at what I specialize in, people getting older. So if I have a client list and they're from 25 to 50 and they've all moved in the last 5 years, a lot of them aren't going to be thinking of moving, but what do they all have in common? Is they all have moms and dads, grandpas.
Right.
So how can I maximize that client list? Is maybe they're not thinking of moving, but how can I ingrain myself into the family? So again, looking at, well, what's happening with the family? Well, we're all getting older. Every day we're getting older. So people are retiring, people are going health challenges, people are losing a spouse, a death or something happening to them. So again, it was, what can I do to show my clients that I'm familiar with different marketplaces. So for me, is I run a program called Housing TLC, which is Housing Transition Lifestyle Consulting. So I actually go in and help an older person plan their next real estate move.
Older, what?
At 60, so my clients probably 60 plus.
Okay.
And they're either approaching retirement or in retirement. So when you think about it, is that we have financial plans. Everyone's, you're a young guy, you're thinking about saving for the future, your retirement savings. You're making vacation plans. Some people are even making their funeral plans. And the biggest investment of our lifetime, how many times have you heard someone say, I've got a real estate plan?
I don't think ever. Yeah.
So what happens is our motivation when we're younger, our motivation is to what? Buy our first house. Mm-hmm. When we own a house, maybe our motivation is we need something bigger for the kids. So we're motivated. And maybe it's when we're in our 50s, we're making our top dollars, we want to get our dream house. So that's our motivation. But the thing is what's our motivation as we get older? We have the house, we're retired, what do we do with that house? And so many of my clients get caught in this loop of where do we go from here? Do we downsize? Do we stay put? Do we renovate? Do we cash out? Do we move closer to the kids? Do we buy a townhouse? Do we buy a detached? And they get around and around and they're caught in this loop and they can't make a decision because they don't know their move motivation. So what I do is I take them through a plan where we look at their lifestyle, their finances, safety, socialization, and they actually get a book that says that we write down all these things so they know what the motivation is going to be. A lot of times they say, Mike, after going through this, we're going to stay put for 3 years because we're comfortable in all the things you've talked about. But other times we'll go, wow, this house is really expensive to run. People always think that, oh, we have a paid for house, we live here for free. Well, we all know that a house is very expensive to run. So again, is that, I've gone through a plan with pricing out how much it costs to run your present home. I've had clients where it's costed them $40,000 a year to run their present home, and it's paid for. So again, it's being there the best thing for them. So again, we create these plans for them, and they can move forward in what they're going to do. And what's unique about that is that no one else is doing it. So people say, well, Mike, how do you distinguish yourself in the marketplace? Well, I've identified the market I want to work in, 60 plus. I identified their problems and concerns. They can't make a decision. They're caught in that loop. And I've created a solution is by creating a plan for them. So when people say, well, why would I deal with you, Michael? I just show them the process I go through, and they go, well, the other guy was going to give me a reduced commission and stick a sign in the line. I said, well, that's not what you need. You need a plan first. You need your motivation, and then we'll talk about marketing your home property. And what is that helpful with me from? People say, well, geez, you guys make a lot of money. You charge 5% commission. I got guys that will do 1%. Well, you can have the guy that does 1%, but this is what I do for my money. And they go, holy smokes, that's a lot. And that's going to help me. And they'll move forward, and they're happy to pay whatever the fee I'm charging because I'm providing that service.
That's something I learned more and more with experience, that the price hesitation is not really a price hesitation. I mean, for some, it's for a small fraction. They want the cheapest guy, and that's it. But you don't want to deal with those guys.
No.
But it's more of a, I don't understand this process. I don't understand the value of what you're offering, and please help me understand it. I know when I sold my first condo, I didn't understand it, and the lady that was selling the condo explained, I get it's 6%, and I get, my brokerage gets 3, the buying gets 3, and I'm like, and she's like, there are ways to reduce that, you can reduce the buying brokers or real estate agents fee. Well, can we do that? She's like, oh, no, no suggestion. But it doesn't help, did not explain it, right? It's just like, oh no, you shouldn't do that. You won't get the household or stuff like that, and it makes me not trust that person. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Because there was no explanation. Do you find, well, maybe not the older folks, maybe the older folks, do you find that they're more educated in their real estate?
Actually, for many of them, they haven't moved in 20, 30. I had my oldest client had been in the same house for 75 years. So they really have no clue about the real estate market. And unfortunately, what they do is they get a lot of advice from their kids or their grandkids, which is usually poor advice, So again, they need to be educated all the way through the process. And that's why, people like dealing with me, because I'm big into education. I say if preparing you to sell your house is a 100-step journey, let's start at step 1, and people always, well, how much is my house worth? Well, I said, that's step 75. Yeah. We got to go back to step 1. We take them step by step, and if they're uncomfortable at any point in time, we stop. And people only get uncomfortable. Why? Because they don't understand something, And we make sure we educate them. Sort of the reason why someone doesn't make a move or move forward is denial. They haven't identified the problem or concern. Then it's lack of information, and then it's for my older clients, it's magnitude of the process. Well, if I've been in the same house for 40 years, it's overwhelming to think of how to get the house ready or how to get rid of the stuff in the house. So you got denial, you got lack of information, and then the magnitude of the process, which generates fear. So if I give them a defined goal, I give them all the information they need, I show them how we're gonna take it one step at a time, that alleviates the fear, and they can move forward.
I like that. Somebody that I watch online a lot, Alex Ramosi, says this. If you're, I don't know if I'm flipping them, but it's basically this. If you're insecure, is because you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do next. But if you're scared, it's because you don't know where you're going. Like, you don't have a target, you're scared. And but you have a target and you don't know how to get there, then you're insecure or you're...
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And it's, these are big decisions. And, I'm talking about, that 60-foot marketplace, but I remember, being 22 years old and, dealing with first-time buyers, and we're both learning together because I was brand new at the time. But as I knew as I educated them more, they trusted me more, and then they were willing to deal with me more. So I guess to build trust is to identify the problem, give them the information they need to make a good decision, and break it down into manageable steps, which alleviates fear.
Right. Since you are somebody who's very niched down, do you make more money when you have a niche or when you're serving everybody?
Do you know what? That's a good question.
Because a lot of people are insecure. Like even when I started my business, like I had fear of missing out, right? And I try to get every opportunity, everything, but it made me not. I personally, I'll let you answer, but else I can say my answer. But I lost a lot of time not making a very specialized package for this specific person and learning exactly what the problems are for that person to fix it and just trying to do it everything.
Yeah. I think when you start out in this business is that you're so broke you need it.
Exactly.
Is that your cousin wants a house in Toronto and your buddy from high school is moving to Niagara, so you're like all over the place, and you get into that rhythm of just the next shiny penny. Okay, that's I got a guy that wants to do Barrie, and with the internet is you can go anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So you're doing this whole thing is where specialization is the opportunity is that you can build your networks. The circle, we call them circles of influence. When you think of me dealing with older clients, well, who else deals with older clients? Well, every financial advisor, most of their clients are older. Right. So I have friends that are financial advisors and they have 250 clients. 70% of them are over 60. They all own houses. And if I can sit and show him how my plan could help his business, is that we can develop a synergy. So by me specializing, I can go into work with those guys as my circle of influence. Retirement residences, so again, the average age in a retirement residence is probably 83. So they're dealing with older clients. So they'd like to deal with me because I have older clients. And retirement residents, they turn over 30% a year. So if I have 100 suites at my retirement residence, on average 30 people will move out. I have to replace those all the time. So there's another circle of influence. By specializing, I can develop these networks.
You know where to go to find your clients. Right.
So if I'm just going everywhere, where do I go to develop that circle of influence?
You're door knocking here, there, mailers everywhere.
And you're lucky whether, no matter what age you are, is that you have a circle. You probably know a financial advisor. You probably know an accountant. You probably know a lawyer. And so how can I work with these people? Because they already have clients. And if I don't have clients, or I'm newer, or the market's changed and I'm kind of struggling, how can I piggyback off all these people? Well, unless I have that specialized service, they don't want to deal with me. Because very early, someone gave me we all tune into one radio station. It's called WIIFM, which stands for What's in It for Me. And so if I'm sitting with a lawyer and I say, well, let's work together, all he's thinking is, what do I get? What do I get? And so if I show him that there's a benefit to him, well, they're going to work with me. And, I have a million little sayings because you've been around a long time, but it's the 3 R's. So if you can show someone how they can recruit new clients, retain their existing clients, and increase their revenue, are they going to work with you? Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And, I know you were saying that you help big real estate teams, or you try to help them with, their marketing packages and things like that. So you have to go in and say, hey, what I do can show them how it's going to recruit new clients, retain their existing ones, and increase their revenue. It's a simple formula, but that's what we have to do.
And it's hard to do if you don't specialize, because how are you going to get to do?
Correct.
An old adage,
See, you're a young guy coming out with old adages. See, I'm rubbing off on you.
I'm not that young. Something, and I think this is very important. I don't know who was talking to you, but they were saying that in certain countries like the US and Mexico, a lot of Canadian doctors go down there to get experience, because here in Canada, you'll see the same small, like, there's such a small population, so you don't get the repetition and the different diseases, different things to get very deep knowledge. But they go there down, mostly Mexico, to do Americans, to do their placement. I don't know what it's called. I think it's placement. And they get so much more experience because they will see everything, and they will see so many more patients down there. And that's why they're more, I don't know, knowledged.
Yeah, well, it's experience. It's work.
Right,
It's
right.
experience. Yeah. And it's funny you brought up the doctor. I was talking to my family doctor the other day, and we're talking in the news that not a lot of graduating medical students are going into general practice. I asked him why. And he says, Mike, there's, I hate to say it, there's no money in general practice because the government limits you how much they pay you,
Right.
and you have to do this huge volume business to make money that is commensurate with the fact that you've gone to school for 7 years.
And you have a lot of debt.
And you've got a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And he says, everyone wants to specialize. Oh, wait, we're going to, even a doctor, his value increases when he specializes, right? And so that's why the generalist makes a minimum amount of money and the specialist makes more. And the more unique your specialty, the more money you make.
So I would love to talk about your church real estate work. My wife actually is studying to be a priest with the Anglican Church.
Oh, yeah.
She's doing her MDiv right now, her Master's of Divinity. Actually finishes this in March.
Oh, how exciting.
So we've talked about a lot about the real estate and how, the Diocese of Toronto and the Anglican Church works and how much land they have. Like so much land that we don't even know they own it. They rent it out to like big malls and a lot of stuff downtown. So please talk about that.
That's why you just mentioned the fact that they rent it out is that probably a lot of people aren't aware is a part of the Eaton Center and the Hudson's Bay building, which is across the street. 3 acres of land underneath there is owned by the Lutheran Church. Actually, the Lutheran Church in one of the Lutheran churches in Toronto. And hundreds of years ago, they owned this land, which is in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of years ago. And instead of selling it, they decided to lease it. And that lease kept going on, and then they built on top of it. So it's a land lease, so every year they get a check. And so that has helped the congregation go for years and years and years because those checks get bigger and bigger as the land increases. A project I worked on in, I think I mentioned the one in Aurora, but their church actually burned down, unfortunately. And we were making a plan for them, and the idea was, how can we be more sustainable? How can we get an income source, And that's why they decided, instead of selling part of the land, they have a land lease, so every year they get a payment, for the next 100 years, and it escalates. So again, so that makes the churches more sustainable because the model of a church is, it used to be, you'd have a congregation of 300-400 people and they're all making their donations. That would support the church and pay for the minister.
Used to be that people gave at least like a set percentage.
Yeah, it's
every year.
the tithing was, I think it's 15%. But anyways, there was cash flow.
Right.
Well, aging population and younger people aren't going to church as much into traditional religion. So that's ever shrinking. So there's no cash flow. So what do we do? And what was happening in the past is that, they would just look around and they would panic and we got to sell something, and land, buildings and land is right in front of us. So it's funny, if you go to many churches, I sold a church in Burlington, and it used to be a rectangle, like you could see on Google Maps, it used to be a rectangle, but then there's like a piece cut out with three houses there, and there was another piece, 2 houses there, and then there was another piece over there cut out. And I was joking with one of the longtime members, and I said, it used to be a big rectangle. He says, yeah, but that's when we needed a new roof, so they sold off this piece. We needed this piece here and on there. And I was talking to a church in Hamilton, and I looked at the satellite view, and there was a church, and it was right downtown, and there was this big parking lot. I'm going, oh wow, that's great. They've got land to do things with. And I says, who owns the parking lot? Well, we sold it to put the addition on the church, of course. Locally, just across the street, St. John's, United, which people don't know our location, but in downtown Oakville, they used to own a huge parking lot. Mm-hmm. And they sold that years ago, and there's condos there right now. So again, that plan to move forward it was more ad hoc, is like, let's just short-term fix,
Right.
And you can't get that land back. So just like I do transition lifestyle consulting for an individual, I do the same process for a church. Is we go in there and say, well, what's the problem? Have we identified the problem is? Well, we have no money in this, and they have the lack of information. Well, do we sell the property? Do we lease the property? Do we amalgamate with someone else? So we really have to sit down and define what are our options out there. So that's giving them the information, and then the magnitude of the process. Well, we talked about people living in their house for 40 years. Well, a lot of these churches, they've been worshiping there for 200 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have stuff everywhere, right? So it's, breaking that down into manageable pieces, which again, the big thing is that many people running these churches, like the congregation members, that are part of the management group at church, the way it runs is the congregation runs the church. So these volunteer groups, they're like 70, 80, 90 years old. We did a church in St. Catherine, and there was 3 ladies that in their 75 to 85 that were responsible for running this whole church.
Yeah.
They have no business sense, and again, so me coming in and making that plan, what are their options? Because again, so much money, people take advantage of people in distress. And same for churches. It's, someone knows that the church needs money, or there's, the guy, developer comes in and goes, hey, I'll give you $200,000 for this property. Of course, it's worth $500,000. Or they didn't know that, if they rezoned that property, it would go from $200,000 to $2 million, right? So we give them all those options. And the process became really popular. So the Anglican Church is what we call top down, which means that the upper church sort of has more control over the individual congregation. So they would be the ones that would talk about their land and what they can do with it. And they have an advisory group, and they do a good job on that. The United Church, they had no direction, and over the years, they've actually have a whole development wing that they brought in, planners and guys that will help a congregation to just phone the United Church head office, and they'll have a team come in and help them make that plan for the future. And that's really why I sort of tapered off that business, because everyone was, it was becoming in-house. Yeah. But it was really interesting work. Didn't pay a lot because to make a decision probably took average 5 years.
Wow, yeah. Wow.
Because can you imagine, it's that fear and going through all the processes. Because there was I developed the process, right? So I had no guideposts, so, I'd go to church at first, hey, look at it, we could do this would be a great plan, 5 townhouses, let's say. And everyone go, yeah, it's a great idea, and then we take it to the congregation after a year, and someone put up their hand, Mrs. Smith in the back going, I heard condos were better. Yeah. And everyone goes, yeah, condos is a better idea.
More hauntings.
So then we had to go back and do research all the condos. And then someone says, well, we should sell it to the city, and so we'd go around and around and around. Because what I had forgot to do was really define their goal and show them, in that lack of information, show them all their options. But as a minister, it's really tough. And you pass this, they should have a course on building a property. Because that is what you're going to be faced with all the time.
It's tough because churches, at least in the Anglican Church that I've been seeing, more and more, they have less people wanting to do that profession. It's not very highly paid. No. And it's a lot of responsibility. And usually it's just one priest in a church. Right. And you handle everything. Yes, you'll have your I forget the name, but your board of people that actually help you sign off, right? But it's basically all on you, right? But
you are the emotional support, you're the spiritual guidance, you're the janitor,
you're the financial planner.
You're financial planner. It is really tough, and it is a tough job. And back in the olden days, there was sometimes 2 or 3 ministers. One would handle the services, one would handle the outreach into the community. One would deal with sick and grieving people. And now that shrinks and shrinks. And now they're getting to the point where they have what's called a 2-point charge or a 3-point charge, where one minister handles 3 congregations.
Oh, wow.
Because they can't, each individual congregation can't afford to pay a minister, so they all get together. So it's tough. Traditional religion is going through it. People say it's dying. It's not really dying. It's just going.
It'll never die.
It's a transition, and
it's transition. Yeah.
And it's exciting times for a lot of them. They get reborn, and I know there's a church in Oakville, in the west end of Oakville, instead of just using their space for meeting on Sundays, they have 600 unique visitors a week come to that church they have a special ed school there, they have AA meetings there, they have different community groups that utilize the space. So, if you didn't have church space, the community would really suffer because they offer that space to anyone at a very minimal cost. So seniors groups, probus groups, all these groups that need space to do stuff in the community use church space. So
right.
it's a key there. And,
yeah, it's sad that, like you were saying, that some of them cannibalize themselves because something that I've thought about when it comes to the church, the Catholic Church, if you ever go to Barcelona and you see La Sagrada Familia, you see that they planned it out, and I don't know how long ago, and it's not even finished, and it's still in phase, 7 out of 15, and it's so well planned out, and it keeps getting, building on top of building and better, and yeah, like a church will live hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah. They shouldn't be.
Yeah, so where I do a real estate plan for somebody, it may be a 5-year plan. A church is a 50-year plan.
Right.
And especially when you're in financial trouble, you have trouble looking, 1 year down the road, let alone 50 years down the road. So what are we doing? How can we do it? And some neat things. One of the churches that we sold, they obviously got a lot of money for the property, and they amalgamated with another church. But what they did was they set up a fund. So a community fund, so people in the community can apply to this church. So let's say they want to start a club or they want to start an outreach program. And every year they use the interest from that money that they got to give out to the community. It is unbelievable, So, there's $150,000 every year goes back into the community from that property. They didn't waste it doing something else. So a lot of neat things that are available out there. But what does it come down to is it's planning.
Yeah.
And where do I want to go from here? And, so if we're talking about, this is a wide podcast, we're talking about who listens to it, but it's all the same thing. Is do we have a plan? Does the new realtor have a plan? We talk about teams, now we have to adjust, changing marketplace. What is the plan? What is the focus? Are we specializing? What are we going to be known for? Most of the time we're just advertising volume. Well, I sell more than that guy, or I'm the number 6 realtor in this corner of the property, and it's just volume. So it appeals to some people. Oh, I want a guy that can, get my house sold really quickly. But what are you really offering to that? What is your point of distinction? Because if you don't have a point of distinction, what's the only comparable? It's price.
Right.
If I come in and I'm going to put a sign on the lawn, I'm going to put a sign on the lawn, I'm going to put a sign on, it's who's put the sign on cheaper. Where you have a specialty or it's a unique value on offering, people will pay more for that.
Yeah, you don't want to be distinguished by price. You don't even want to be compared to other people when it comes to price, right?
And a lot of the big teams have done a really good job of making that, whether they're community focused or what they do, they have that value add package, But if they don't have it, we kind of got away from it because we talked about earlier, we've had 13, 14 years of
anything will work.
Anything will work.
And now, written signs.
And written signs. And now the volume's down 50%. Well, you're going to have find a way to do that. And it's, there's opportunities. I remember a good friend of mine that we worked with for years, when the market changed in the late 80s, he wound up getting a contract with one of the savings and loan companies to do all their power sales. So, and here other agents were struggling, and they were repossessing, unfortunately, a lot of houses. So we kind of specialized in repossessed houses. So we were selling a lot of properties because that was what we were known for. So other people were calling us that were repossessing houses. So tremendous opportunities out there.
Someone with your experience and your specialization, what attracts you to a brokerage and makes you stay there?
Well, it's a great question. Because when I was doing consulting with the churches, I wasn't selling. I was just on a consultant role. I didn't get into, I would hire a realtor, and because it was more specialized, on selling a church property because there's a lot of nuances. So I would actually hire the realtor and work with them on the marketing of the church. But when I got back and I wanted to do one-on-one with clients, I first started at Montreal Trust, which is no longer in existence, but RE/MAX was just coming into existence back in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. And I was, one of the first people at a RE/MAX office, so, but the whole idea of RE/MAX is you do everything. That was the value proposition was you're your own business.
And you get a bigger cut.
Yeah, and you get a bigger cut. But so that was, everyone going to RE/MAX because look, I get the bigger cut, and I run my own business. I get my own office. That was a big one. You got your own office. So when getting back into it is that I don't want to do everything. I've been doing this a long time, and I like dealing with people. I like creating plans. I like, doing these things, productive work. I don't want to do administration work. I know what marketing I want to do, but I don't want to learn how to, use a program to do marketing and social media and podcasts. I don't want to learn how to do that because there's people like yourself that are really good at it. So what I selected as a brokerage at Berkshire Hathaway is that we're like a team, but we're individuals, is that we have an in-house marketing department. We have an in-house admin staff. So really I come in and I say, I have a new list. Here's my new listing. And they take it from there. They create the feature sheets, they create the booklets, they create they set up the appointments for the photographer. They do everything for me. And when the house is sold, they send the gifts. I don't do any of that work. I just focus on productive work, which is what I'm good at, is one-on-one with the client. FaceTime. Yeah. So again, anything that you can do to get yourself out of that stuff, that busy, non-productive stuff, driving to pick up a sign. I remember, having to go hammer in signs yourself, an idea, but you want to just be good at what you're good at, right? And I'm big at delegation. So services like yours, that if I was at a different office environment, I'd be having you do all that stuff for me on the marketing side, because that's not. I know my message I want to get out there, but you're going to tell me how to do it.
Right.
Okay, so that's that communication. I know what I want, and you're going to show me how to do it. Again, with my clients, I help them define the message, and then I'll show them how to do it.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
But you have to. It goes in that order, though, because people always say, "Well, I'm going to hire a marketing guy, and they're going to do it all for me." Well, you got to give them direction. Yeah. This is what This is my value proposition. This is what I want to do, and you can show them all the different ways to do it. I mean, I'm amazed when I talk to the two women that run our marketing section, and just the imagination they have, the creativity they have. Like, I'm just going, holy smokes, I asked them to do something, and suddenly 10 minutes later, I'm getting an email going, "This is what you want?" And I went, "That's exactly what I want." So it's exciting to do things like that. But no one can keep up with the changing technology. I mean, you look at AI and all the different things, I'd spend weeks and months just researching how all that works and how I incorporate that in my business. So again, I just want to help people, and that's the thing, it's not how many houses I sold, it's how many people can I help? Because the money comes. If I help enough people get to where they're going, I'm going to make the money. That's what we focus on.
I've heard people hesitate on investing a lot and giving a lot to people they take onto the brokerage of their team, because the mentality is, well, they'll get to a point and they'll leave and start their own team. And then I invest in somebody who just left. And in my mind, and from my experiences, I had the same feeling when I started hiring people, right? Well, I'm going to train them. I'm going to be like, okay, take these couple hours and study this. And I'm like, am I just training these people for them to be better and leave to go for somebody who's getting more money or their own thing? And some frac people will do that. But as people, in my point of view, as people get more experience and know what they want, the majority of people don't want to be entrepreneurs. It is a tough life. It's
many sleepless nights.
Yes, and more people just want direction, and you provide everything. Like you were saying, what would you say to people that are starting their team and have that fear on and investing in their team?
I think if they read any book on business, going back as far as you want to, is the adage is surround yourself with promotable people. You want the best. you want people that eventually are going to go out on their own, because while they're there, they're going to be giving it 100%. If I just want another cog in a wheel I'm going to plug in, I'm going to get that effort. So I want the go-getter. I want the guy that's excited, or the woman excited about coming to work and is going to put input into the team and going to do all that extra effort, because when they move on, they've given me more value than I've given them. And it's tough. It's tough to leave, right? I mean, I remember leaving the office I worked at to do something different. I mean, it's sad. You have friendships and you have bonds, but you're right. Some people at different stages in their life, they don't. Some people want to work X number of hours in real estate because they have home commitments or whatever. And in a team environment where they have a specialty, maybe they're just, that's their niche and that's what they like to do. Or maybe someone's approaching retirement and they only want to work this hard, But I would never worry about someone moving on, because that means I did a good job.
Right.
And I can say, and what a great recruiting tool. See Bill over there that makes $1 million a year? I trained him. Oh, wow, I want to work for you. Exactly. I mean, and what's Bill going to say? Well, go work for Mike first, if you're getting into the business, because he's the greatest trainer around. So I'm going to grow my business because I did a good job over there.
Going back to your service and who you're focusing, what's the one message that what's a message that you would want to communicate to these people around that age group, thinking about what's next?
Taking the time to create that plan, because I did a talk in, where was I? It's in St. Catharines. I do a lot of speaking to service groups and things like that. And I asked people how often they thought about making a real estate change. And this crowd was probably 70 plus. And a lot of them were ladies on their own, their husbands had passed away. And I says, how about, every 6 months? And a few people put over there. And I says, well, every month, do you think about making a change? When I got to daily, probably 90% of the house went on. It was just preoccupied. What should I do? Where should I go? And then that's where I came up with, where do we go from here? Because it's constant. Where do we go? Where do we go? The house is getting expensive. The grandkids are in Toronto. We're in St. Catharines. And it goes around, and you're so paralyzed by fear, you're not doing anything. So every day it's wake up, oh yeah, we should do something, yeah, And unfortunately, what happens? A crisis happens. A fall, a death, it's a disease. And they're forced to make a decision, which is awful, because I don't know about you, but I don't make great decisions when I'm under pressure. So if I have that plan in place and something happens, I know what I'm gonna do. And I got that from my mom and dad. My dad was an unbelievable planner. He was just that kind of person. But my dad, they had a big house, and they used to like fixing up houses, so they'd buy a new house and fix it up, like finished basements and things like that. And my dad was like 70 some odd years old, and they went from a 2,800 square foot to a 3,600 square foot house, just because they liked it. It's what they like to do. But my dad had got diagnosed when he was early 80s with Parkinson's, so he knew how to make a plan. So the plan was, they sold that house. They got a gorgeous condo, and my dad passed away from something unrelated, but he passed away about 6 months after they moved into the condo. So there was my mom and dad, who were married over 55 years. They did everything together, and now my mom's on her own. But because they had made that decision, she was in the condo. There was a lot of other older people in the condo. There was a lot of other widows in the condo. She created a brand new life for herself for the next 8 years. She lived in that condo. She had more friends, did more activities, because she was in a safe environment where she could have socialization. Mm-hmm. And that was all stems from having a plan. And then the next phase of her life, she would, knew she had trouble being on her own. So retirement community was the next logical choice. So what happened? We shopped around and found the retirement community she liked. Didn't move in right away, but that was the plan. And then, we implemented the plan. And then the next 5 years after that, she enjoyed the quality of life in the retirement residence, because she had safety and socialization. She had people to, all the cooking was done for her, all the chores were done for her, and all she did was enjoy people's company. And of course, phone me up every day because her cable wasn't working right. I think that was just to see me. But, so that's, it's just creating those plans.
You think all that success for your mom started from your dad's planning?
It was directly related to that. Okay. And so, every day I get someone that phones me up, my mom's not doing well, and she's got two things sort of happen when we get older, a generalization, but sort of either our minds start to diminish or our physical capacity diminishes, or both, but mostly it seems like one or the other. And, so my mom's, dementia, it's sort of, she can't be on her own, and dad's trying to look after her. But they let these things go on forever until there's this crisis, if they had a plan in place of this is what we're going to do over the next 3 years, we're going to get the house ready, we're going to find a place that's suitable for mom and dad and to deal with all these problems. But it's always the same phone call, crisis happened. A high school friend of mine, I always asked, how's his mom doing? Oh, she's in the family home, she's doing well. What was the next call? Mom was in the garage cleaning something, fell and broke her hip, and she did 6 months of rehab. Mom should never be in a garage fixing things. But it happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And for us, one of the things, and we talk about the impact in a circle of influence, is that, I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but caregiving for an elderly parent impacts, people in the workforce. Like billions and billions of dollars are lost because, the husband and wife has to take time off to look after mom or grandma. And the figure is staggering how many man hours are lost. Or production is lost. Okay. Because mom is sitting in her, dad died, they're in the family home still, she's rattling around with nothing to do. Mm-hmm. And then mom has, the daughter has to take time off work and go and clean the house or make some meals for the week, and the son has to go and fix the fence and he has to go this way. So they're taking time away from not only their own children, but their workplace. Mm-hmm. If you had a plan in place, you could minimize that. You're always going to have, spend time with mom and dad, but if we put mom in an environment, instead of being in the family home, she has no one around her, and we put her in an opportunity where she's safe, like we'll use a condo as an example, a one-floor condo, it's safe. There's access to, you have to have a key to get into the main lobby. Mm-hmm. And socialization is there's people around you. There's guys right next door to you. So even if you're antisocial, when you walk to the elevator, you're going to run into someone. Yeah. When you're in the elevator, you're going to talk to someone. When you take the garbage out, you're going to run into someone. When you go to the underground, you're going to run into someone. So that opportunity just to share a hello is a
big difference.
A big difference. And I was surprised the list from people being isolated. The list of diseases it's ongoing, they say like a ship in harbor deteriorates a lot faster than when it's sailing, right? A plane deteriorates a lot faster sitting on the ground than flying, and a person on their own by themselves deteriorates at this huge rate.
Yeah. Michael, I think we hit an hour mark.
Oh, well, that's good.
It goes by quick, doesn't it? Anything else that you'd like to say?
So I guess, if I was, if I was a young realtor or, just starting out, or I'm really scared, even though I have 13 years experience and the market's changed and suddenly, wow, what do I do? You step back and look at the opportunities as a whole, If it's a slow market, where are those opportunities? And we talked about first-time buyers. They don't know any different. This is the market they're in. Move up in a down market, or or with an older client, help them plan for the future. Pick one of those and you can work on it. But every self-help book in the world always says the same thing. You need a plan. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the word for the day. And delegate responsibilities. Don't try to do it all yourself. Hire a professional like yourself. This is my plan I want to do. This is my market I want to go to. Let's talk to a professional and say, how can you help me do this? You got to invest money to make money. Mm-hmm. If you try to do, multitasking is just is something that's been proven it doesn't work. No. It's got to be focused. They talk about having laser focus, and you need laser focus. Exciting times, and as we just remember what my old Portuguese friend, there's always people getting married, there's always people getting divorced, there's always people making more money, there's always people losing money, and there's always people that are sick and dying. So the market is always good. It's just how do we look at it?
So drive a Toyota and hire somebody.
Yeah, that's right. I better sell my gasoline SUV. The market's changed.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.